The courthouse waiting area buzzed with hushed conversations and the rustling of papers. Lisa sat quietly on one of the stiff, uncomfortable benches, her arms wrapped protectively around her rounded belly. At 7 months pregnant, exhaustion was etched into every inch of her body, her swollen ankles a silent testament to the long day ahead. But despite it all, her posture exuded quiet strength. She wasn't here for herself. She was here for family. Her younger sister, Kimberly, was due to appear before the judge today, accused of petty theft, an accusation that reeked of injustice. Kimberly had sworn up and down that she was falsely accused, and Lisa? She believed her. Not just out of blind family loyalty, but because standing up for what was right was in her blood. Lisa had spent her life fighting for justice, organizing food drives, helping families pay overdue bills, hosting community forums to hold local leaders accountable. Her presence in that courthouse wasn't just about support. It was a statement. If someone needed her, she showed up. Period. As she sat scanning the room, a janitor rushed past, arms overburdened with a massive box of legal files. It was bound to happen. The box slipped. Papers exploded across the floor in a chaotic flurry. People nearby? Some ignored it completely. Others glanced over, but made no move to help. Lisa hesitated only for a second. "You need a hand?" she asked, already rising. The movement wasn't easy. Her belly made sure of that, but she didn't let it stop her. Breathing through the strain, she crouched down and began gathering the scattered documents. The janitor, clearly embarrassed, shook her head. "Oh, ma'am, please don't. It's fine." Lisa cut in gently, brushing off the concern. "I've got it." Her pace wasn't fast, but it was deliberate. The janitor muttered her thanks, her cheeks flushed with gratitude. But Lisa's simple act of kindness hadn't gone unnoticed. Someone else was watching. Behind the glass of an office door, Judge Richard Hoffman peered out, his piercing gaze narrowing in curiosity. Hoffman, a name that carried weight in that courthouse. Known for his no-nonsense demeanor and a history of handing down disproportionately harsh sentences. The kind of man who loved reminding people exactly who held the gavel. To him, Lisa's actions weren't a reflection of character. They were an anomaly. A heavily pregnant woman stooping down to help clean up someone else's mess? That didn't fit neatly into his rigid worldview. Then, the courtroom doors creaked open. Kimberly's hearing was about to begin. Lisa returned to her seat, her face calm, but her mind racing. She had rehearsed exactly what she'd say if things went south. She hoped it wouldn't come to that. Hope was fragile, but it was hers. As Kimberly's case was called, the sisters exchanged a look, steady, reassuring. Lisa silently mouthed, "You've got this." Kimberly squared her shoulders and stepped forward. Judge Hoffman leaned back in his chair, settling in, his expression sharp as a blade. And then, his voice cut through the courtroom like ice. "Another member of the same family in my courtroom," he drawled, his tone laced with pure condescension. "Seems trouble runs in your bloodline." She held back, knowing exactly what kind of man she was dealing with. Hoffman's eyes flickered toward her, almost daring her to challenge him. But then, he did the unthinkable. "You," he barked, pointing directly at Lisa. "Stand up." A wave of confused murmurs rippled through the room. Lisa hesitated. "Excuse me?" she asked, her voice steady, despite the tight knot forming in her throat. The judge sneered. "If you've got the energy to play Good Samaritan in my courtroom, then you've got the energy for a little exercise. 50 push-ups. Right here. Right now. Let's see just how strong you really are." The room fell into an eerie silence. A sharp gasp escaped Kimberly. Every eye was locked onto Lisa. She stared at the judge, disbelief flashing across her face. Did he seriously think this was acceptable? Did he even care that she was 7 months pregnant? "Sir, with all due respect." "I can't," she began. "You will." He cut her off, his voice cold. "Or I'll hold you in contempt. Your choice." The humiliation hit like a tidal wave. The courtroom buzzed with whispers, judgment pressing down on her like a crushing weight. Lisa's hands trembled as she slowly lowered herself to the ground. She could feel her baby shift inside her, the pressure on her body unbearable. But she wasn't just carrying her child. She was carrying every injustice she had ever fought against. Placing her palms against the cold, hard floor, she braced herself. The first push-up was agony. Her arms shook. The weight of her belly made every movement a struggle. A sharp pain shot through her back, but she pushed through, sweat already beading on her forehead. Around her, the courtroom buzzed, some whispering in shock, others watching with cold indifference. Kimberly couldn't stay silent. "This is illegal. She's pregnant. You can't do this," she shouted, her voice cracking. Judge Hoffman's face twisted in irritation as he slammed his gavel. "One more word, and you'll face contempt charges," he barked. In the back of the room, young attorney Anthony Davis had seen enough. He pulled out his phone, leaning forward to whisper, "Ma'am, you don't have to do this. I'm recording everything. We can fight this." Lisa paused, her arms trembling. She glanced at Anthony, then shook her head. "It's not about me," she said firmly. "It's about everyone. Let him see how strong we are." She forced herself into a second push-up, then a third. But her vision blurred. Dizziness set in. Just as her strength began to falter, the courtroom doors slammed open with a resounding crash. A tall man in a dark suit strode in, his every step radiating raw authority. Robert Carter, Lisa's husband, a U.S. senator. He had seen the viral video of his wife's humiliation, and he dropped everything to be there. His gaze locked onto Judge Hoffman, burning with fury. "What is going on here?" Robert's voice sliced through the tension like a knife. Hoffman visibly stiffened. "Who gave you the right to treat my wife like this?" The judge stammered. "In this courtroom, everyone is equal under the law." Robert took a step closer, his tone like ice. "Equal? You call forcing a pregnant woman to the floor equality?"
"This ends now."
Silence. The air in the room was thick, suffocating. Lisa looked up at her husband, relief and exhaustion swirling in her eyes. The fight wasn't over, but the tide was turning. Robert didn't let Hoffman get another word in. With steady determination, he walked to Lisa, gently helping her to her feet. His presence was like a storm, calm on the surface, but with thunder brewing beneath. "You violated every ethical and legal boundary imaginable," Robert said, his voice cutting and deliberate. "And you will be held accountable." The entire room held its breath. All eyes were now on Hoffman, who no longer looked like the all-powerful figure he had been moments ago. No, now he looked like a man cornered. The weight of his own arrogance was finally crashing down on him. He adjusted his robe, grasping for control. "You can't intimidate this court," he snapped, though his voice wavered. "This is my jurisdiction." Robert turned to face the room, his voice rising with conviction. "This isn't about jurisdiction. This is about human dignity. This man has abused his power to humiliate others, and it ends now." Then, Robert pulled out his phone. The room buzzed with whispers as he spoke, his words clipped, efficient. It didn't take long. Minutes later, the doors opened. A flood of reporters entered, cameras flashing, recorders rolling. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Hoffman's face paled as he realized the full extent of his predicament. Lisa straightened beside her husband, exhaustion momentarily forgotten. The sight of the journalists lit a spark in the room. And then someone started clapping. Then another. And another. Until the entire courtroom erupted into thunderous applause, a collective stand against the injustice they had just witnessed. Hoffman's face burned red. His confident facade?
Gone.
His gavel? Useless. Desperate, he tried to flee, but two of Robert's aides stepped forward, blocking his path. One of them handed him an official document. "We've filed a formal complaint with the Judicial Oversight Committee," the aide said firmly. "You'll be hearing from them soon." The judge froze. His eyes darted to Robert, then to the cameras, then back again. He had no choice but to sit back down, his authority now in shambles. As the tension in the room finally eased, Robert turned to Lisa, never once letting go of her hand. She watched as Hoffman was escorted out, his steps heavy with defeat. And then, the applause swelled again, washing over the courtroom like a wave of triumph. Lisa leaned into her husband, resting her head lightly against his shoulder. Her face was calm, but her eyes burned with quiet determination. This fight wasn't over.
But now?
She wasn't alone. Together, they were ready to fight for justice. For everyone who had ever been silenced, overlooked, or humiliated.
And now?
The world was watching,